Khalil, one of her best friends since she was little, was shot by a white police officer, and it shows her taking on that situation and finding her voice in that struggle. And while showing that, we see both sides of her and her ultimately overcoming it. His dad's a lawyer. His mum doesn't really work. She's off on holiday with her friends most of the time. He's got 2 older siblings who are older and have kids now, so he lives in this big mansion by himself. And then there's Starr, who he is very much in love with. And I feel like Chris has a certain longing of intimacy because he doesn't really have that family environment anymore, so I think he finds that in Starr. At the start, he didn't really understand, racism in that way. He was kind of blinded by it, and he understood it on an intellectual way, but once she'd opened up her world to him, I think it became more of, it opened his eyes. He does see color. Everyone sees color. If you don't see color, then you've got to be blind. But the reason why, what he means by that is he doesn't see color as a way to separate people. But him saying that is also, it also means that he doesn't understand her for who she is, because people are different, people grow up differently, and him saying that he doesn't see color means that he doesn't see her for who she is. I think it's necessary for everyone to be themselves, and I think it's also necessary for people to not just say, when it comes to understanding someone else, to not just say, I get it, or I understand, because the reality of that is, if you're not in those person's shoes, you really don't understand. He is one of my favorite directors, I would say. It's the first director that I've worked with who's so involved and so passionate and wants to work through every single moment with us. He's very much an actor's director. Myself and Amandla did a lot of rehearsal time before the movie and got to know each other's characters and motives and stuff like that, which for me, I haven't been acting that long, and it was a new experience for me, and I loved it. I'm so excited for this film to come out. I think it's a very important story. It's a very important story for the world right now. It's a very sensitive place, and I think it's going to be very powerful, and I hope people can learn something from it, and I hope people can come out of that theater with a different mindset, because that's what we're trying to achieve.
It's an important message no matter what's going on in the world in general. A journey for truth is always never going to get old. So, and it's nice to work on a film that you feel like has a chance of being an iconic piece that depicts the period of history that we're in, which I think this does. The writing is spectacular. George is a great director. He has a lot of heart and soul of his invested in this, and it really comes through every day. For me, the story is a journey of this young lady who, in an essence, is finding a voice for truth. And she first has to come up with the courage for that voice. And when she does, and she overcomes the fear, and she comes to a point in her lifetime where she says, I've got to do this. She doesn't want to. It's not a fame situation, but she feels compelled, and indeed it's her duty to speak the truth for those who cannot do it. And, that's very strong. And Amandla, is doing that so brilliantly. I think the strengths of this project are, we all start with the written word, the script, and that's amazingly powerful. But that doesn't do much if you don't have the people to actually relate and say the words that are in that script. And this cast is varied in age and experience. And each and every one of them are really bringing something special to it.
We read a lot of books that want to speak to this audience, and we see a lot of movies articles, things like that want to be in that part of this world, but authenticity is not something you can fake, and so we're always looking for it, and it's nice to find it. You know, it was critically important to make sure that we understand the story of Starr and her journey from a young girl who witnessed a horrible tragedy to a person who's a justice fighter, you know, a freedom fighter, a young girl willing to stand up for the things that she believes in. The story is about a young girl who is caught between two worlds. The world that she lives in with her family in a very suburban neighborhood where plight exists, where crime exists, where gangs exist, and the world that she lives in when she goes off to school and code switches. Wealthier kids, more entitlement, more of everything. And she's a girl trying to figure out which world is hers. Now, the truth is, both of these worlds are hers, but she has to figure out what's important to her along the way. And she witnesses the murder of her closest friend by the hands of the cops. And the journey afterwards is her coming to terms with that tragedy, coming to terms with her friends who may or may not be supportive of her, and her recognizing that for her to make active change in her community, she needs to stand up and speak out. There's not a lot of finger pointing here in this movie. The movie is recognizing a problem that we face in our society. And the movie asks questions and points us in directions that force ourselves, the watchers of the film, the readers of the book, to figure out how they can improve the society that they live in. But that just doesn't include how we speak to cops. It also includes how we work within our home family units and how we interact with our neighbors and how we interact with our friends. And it puts us all to task on how to do the right thing. Amandla read the book before I did. Amandla managed to get her hands on the book very, very early. She's a voracious reader. She is a brilliant young woman with many different skill sets. But watching Amandla as an actor come into her own, while at the same time watching this character Starr transform and come into her own has been priceless. I've known Regina personally for many, many years, and she lights up any room she's in. She's most noted for her comedy, but she really gets to show her dramatic chops in this movie, and she's an exceptional actress and a great energy on set. And Russell is one of America's greatest actors, and he's been doing it for many, many years. He killed it last year in Fences. And what I've noticed about him is that he's incredibly generous to the other actors. He really proves how good he is as an actor by how good everybody else looks around him. I have been a fan of George's as a filmmaker for many, many, many years, since before Soul Food. I had the pleasure to work with him. He is brilliant, he's incredibly talented, but he's also horribly, horribly hardworking. I'm hoping that the audience watches a story about love and a story about understanding. And along the way, as they're feeling the love of these characters for one another, and they go on this journey of discovery with our lead character, that they also get slightly awoken to the world around them and recognize their responsibility of citizens in their communities.
I wasn't aware of the entire cast when I first heard about, obviously, when I first read the book. I was just a fan of the story and the message behind it. And then once I started to see the project develop and who was a part of it, and obviously see the characters come to life, I was really, really looking forward to having some part in it. And obviously, hopefully a part that can open people's eyes a little bit. I think it's especially resonated with a lot of this younger generation, which is, from reading a lot of what Angie has said about the inspiration behind it, was definitely who it was aimed towards. Because I think we are the future as far as voices and as far as, people that are future leaders, and we do need this time in our lives to read things that do inspire us and that do educate us and that do keep us in the know of what's going on in our world surrounding us. So I definitely think it's hit with that generation. She's such an inspirational young girl, I think, as a character, because she's definitely navigating two separate worlds. I'm more involved in her world where they call it Starr 2.0, where she's Williamson's Starr, and she's at school and she kind of has to almost put up a bit of a wall and be a different person in order to not be judged in the way that, for some reason, the world has trained our minds to judge people when they do and act a specific way. And so it's really just, obviously she goes through seeing her best friend get shot and being in that car with that white police officer and seeing that he was very innocent in every single way possible, and obviously dealing with that. And, she takes that and uses it to empower her and not to make her weak in any sort of way. And she ends up finding out who she is and who are the people in her life that she can trust. Haley was always someone in Starr's life and in Starr's Williamson world that was someone that was just a little bit more real. She wasn't fake. She definitely was to the point, and I think they always got along because of that reason. She was just who she was all the time. And then I think as they start to grow and as Starr starts to change, I don't think Haley likes it. And Haley is this kind of person that always likes to be in control. And she was sort of used to kind of being the leader of her and her friendship with Starr and with Maya. So you think as the movie progresses and as you see their friendship progress, you see it definitely starts to get harder because Haley's a little bit ignorant in a lot of ways, and she's kind of just blindsided by, the flashing lights and the fun of it all, and doesn't really realize when she's not being very sensitive. Williamson is an interesting school, and it's such an interesting part of the story as it does show the dichotomy between who Starr is in her home life and who she is in her school life. And the students around school and the interaction that she has, it's very clean. It's very squeaky clean, and it's a lot of kids that are not. They're a lot like Haley in a lot of ways. They're kind of in their own world. They're kind of just, a little bit careless in a lot of situations, which is good and bad. But I think in this story, it's not very good. There's one side that sees Khalil as not innocent, and they see it as, well, he was probably, he was probably headed down a bad path anyways, and he was probably got himself into trouble, and because they weren't there, they didn't witness the situation, so they only hear what the media feeds to them, what the media wants them to see. And then there's this side of it that knows what that's like in everyday life because they go through that, because they were born into a certain family, into a specific neighborhood, and they have to deal with that. And it's the two different sides that are very interesting, and it's what this story is all about. It's showing, the point of view where it comes from, where Khalil is coming from, where Starr is coming from, and that point of view, and kind of helping the other audience see that in a way that we don't have to deal with ourselves in our everyday life because of how we were raised in the families that we were born in. I think it opens Starr's eyes a lot, because I think before, things that Haley would say and things that Haley would do and sort of how Haley would brush things off didn't used to bother Starr, because Starr just used to try to fit in. Starr would kind of just push everything down. She would just push down her feelings, push down any way that she felt that was different, so people wouldn't see her as the angry black girl or label her as the angry black girl. And so I think when she experiences this in such a personal way, and Haley's acting the way that Haley always has, but Starr's kind of been blind to it before, she starts to see that Haley is not acting the way that a friend should, and not acting in a way that she wants someone in her life to act. Starr finds her voice because she has to. She kind of has to use this time to speak up for Khalil because she was the witness. She was the only one there. She was the only one that really knows how innocent that he was, is. And so I think that she definitely I mean, and as she should be, is angry at the fact that people are asking the wrong questions, and they're asking the wrong questions to the wrong people. A lot of the times when you're young and you're an actress, you see other girls as like competition, and she was always someone that I just admired, and I was just like, I love how natural she is and effortless, and she plays her characters. So I was really, really excited to be able to play alongside her. I think so much of the time, even when he's not talking to me or giving me specific direction, I just want to watch him and learn from him, because he really does have a motive behind every single thing that he does. I think the most interesting process for him, at least in my perspective, was the rehearsal process. I've never seen a director take the time to like really get us to understand where our characters are coming from. You know, he would give us exercises and different things that just, I would feel so happy about afterwards, because I would just understand what I was doing so much more. And I think for a script like this and for a story like this, you need to understand your motives behind everything. We're lucky if we can use, the entertainment industry, which is usually a lot of fiction and fairy tale and make-believe, to kind of distract us from our problems. And in this, we're able to nail our problems right on the head and have people face them with a question of, you either understand it or you don't. And we hope that a lot of people will understand it. We hope that they do take home this message, and we hope that it does open the conversation to change, and understanding and love and kindness and acceptance. So I definitely think that's what it's supposed to do. We're not making it for fun. I mean, we are, it's really fun, but I definitely think there's a purpose behind it. I think when Angie wrote the book, she had that purpose behind it as well, and we're bringing it to life.
To see this young teenager like maneuver through life and try to get understanding, and also take the foundation that she was given from her loved ones, and really watch her evolution and how she affected the community as a young person. I thought it was like a really beautiful told story. And not that everything that happens in it is beautiful, but the evolution of life and the way you see people develop and come together and overcome the darkness was what I really was drawn to. I wanted to be a part of it. It's important for me to be a part of it because, I've learned that in telling stories, you can change people's lives. And you can enlighten people, you can let them connect with us as human beings. Like when I say us, just other human beings who may not have interaction with this community, with the Black community, or, wherever you come from, you get to express life and connect with human beings through storytelling. And I've been able to be a part of some important stories, and this is a very important story that I wanted to be a part of, and it's necessary to be told. We kind of see things in similar ways because, like, I've come from the community, but I've also seen other things in life. So I expose her to those things, and we have real honest conversations. And she's been a wise. You could have that. You could have a child or a teenager give you a lot of wisdom. That's what Starr is to Carlos, and Carlos tries to return that wisdom through example and through the love he shows her. He obviously cares about the life of Khalil, and he has a compassion and an empathy for his niece and her being involved in it. And the loss of life for a young person, a young Black kid, is any human being, but for a young Black kid in the neighborhood to lose his life like that, he feels that. But he also has another perspective just because he's been on the other side. I really believe George is a visionary who is very connected to the story and really cares about the people, the characters, and the people that this represents, and the dialogue that's happening in our country and in the world when it comes to this subject matter. And I believe he has a brilliant perspective and way to tell it that's going to make people experience it, enjoy it, connect with it, feel the humanity, and I think walk away feeling like they want to do something better in life and go out and do better in the world.
I've always been so connected to those stories, and I'm from East New York, Brooklyn, and I know a lot of the young men who I love and care about are often racially profiled by the cops and feel like they can't catch a break. So it was really important to do this story. And then also, I looked at the cast and I was like, well, Amandla's really awesome, and it would be an honor to work with her. So Kenya is very expressive. She expresses herself through hair and makeup, and I think she cares deeply about a lot of things, but haven't really gotten the opportunity or the space to learn or explore. For Kenya, Starr is someone she's often looked up to, but has always had a hint of jealousy, because she has a family that Kenya doesn't have, and she has a relationship with Seven. That's her brother too, but he often wants to be around that family. So I think she's been jealous of Starr, but she's also held Starr on a higher pedestal. Khalil is shot and killed by the cops, and it changes Starr because it wakes her up, it shakes her. Her father's often told her about police brutality and what to do when a cop stops you, but now she's seeing that it actually didn't work, or that Khalil wasn't taught the same thing, and so it ended tragic for him. But I think she's questioning, who she wants to be at the same time of who she's allowed to be, and she has to decide to speak up or not. It's important because when you have a voice and you know a truth, then you should speak up. Even if it's dangerous, even if it's hard, I think if a lot of us came together and did that now, we would be in a different, or moving towards a different direction. We had a rehearsal, and she walked in the door and we looked at each other and we were just like, what's up? It kind of felt like we knew each other our whole lives, so that made it super, super easy. And this was my first time filming away from home in a different state for a long time, and she made it feel very warm, and it felt like a home. And so she's so responsible for carrying the whole film and bringing the character to life, but she still extends herself to make you feel welcome. And I'm very proud of her, and I'm very happy for her. You can't have a story like this and not get everybody's side, or try at least to get everybody's side. I don't think the Black Lives Matter movement is trying to paint all cops a certain way. So when you get somebody that she loves a lot and respects telling her this side, it kind of makes you think differently. You get all the perspectives, but then she's able to come out and still hold fast to what she knew in her heart from the beginning. I think that's also I just think it's a great touch to have. I'm glad that Fox is taking on this topic and giving it a platform, a big platform. I think it's very important that we all in our own ways start trying to make a difference, step by step.
After having read the script and the book, I thought the subject matter was so powerful and timely. The fact that we're still having this discussion, still, generation after generation, decade after decade, and the issue is still as relevant today as it was, 40, 50, 60 years ago. I think this issue is important for our society to address. I think, collectively we all play a part, and unless we all, as human beings take responsibility for some of the irresponsible actions, that occur, and the victimization that occurs, and racial profiling, then we all have a voice to say, that this isn't right. And I think she really wants to create a better future than she had for her children, and she's conscious of, making sure that Starr, as a young, Black female, doesn't make the same mistakes that she did, and that her sons don't get involved in the lifestyle that Maverick had. And so, they try to make the sacrifices, send them to better schools so that they can have a bright future. But, you know, Lisa's happy. She has a beautiful marriage, a brother who's a police officer, and, you know, her family unit is really strong. Star's been taught since a young girl, you know what I mean, to have a certain reverence and, you know, fear of the cops. And she learned that from Maverick, who taught her and the boys. And in the situation, you know, she's already very uncomfortable when the police officer pulls them over. But unfortunately, Khalil is innocently shot and killed. You know, there's the pressure from, you know, the black people who are tired of it for her to stand up, you know, to get this officer arrested. There's the pressure from what has happened to her as a child with her friend Natasha and witnessing something where she's trying to really reach within and find, you know, the courage to speak. And then, you know, she has the pressure from Lisa to say, don't, you know, you don't need to bear this. And then Maverick saying, don't ever be afraid. So there's she's got a lot of things coming. And so it just changes, you know, where Maverick and I agree, where we disagree, you know, about where we live, about what's next, about what's, you know, what's priority, you know, is it our neighborhood and our blackness or our family? You know, Mav comes from the streets, so he's not afraid of King. He doesn't have that fear that maybe the young guys do. You know, he's definitely not going to touch my family. And I think that's what's so, you know, enticing about Maverick as a character, that you see this guy that has all this street credibility, but he's kind of come out on the other side. And, but he's also not afraid of anything, you know, but he's also aware of everything. When they were young, I think King had some charges already, and so when he gets in trouble, Mav kind of takes the rap, and that's actually how he gets out of the gang. It's kind of like one of those organizations, as we'll call it for now, that you join for life. So there's also a part of King that loves the life that Maverick gets to lead, you know, that loves that he has a family, that loves that he doesn't have to, that he can make a living and have the joy that, you know, without that kind of street hustle.
At her private school, she's, you know, very poised, smart girl who can get along with everyone, no matter what race. And then at home, she's herself with her family and who she's grown up with. And yeah, she lives in those two different worlds. Williamson High School, it's predominantly white, and it's a private school. So many of those that go to Williamson High School have a lot of money and are privileged and drive nice cars and have parents that just give them whatever they want. And at our school, you know, the minorities have to try to fit in. So the people at school, they react to Khalil's death. I feel like to them it's so far out of their realm, it's not a part of their lives, that they pay attention to it only because it gets them out of school. They get to have a free day because they're protesting. They're protesting, but not because they care about the issue. They're protesting because they care about skipping class. And their sympathy for the topic and for Khalil's death is very shallow. Haley sympathizes with the cop that shot Khalil. And Haley, she believes that Khalil was a threat and that the cop, it was fine that he shot Khalil because Khalil looked like he had a gun, so it's okay. Like, the cop was in the right, not the wrong. And Starr just cannot handle that. Starr was there. She saw what happened. Haley wasn't. But Haley's making these assumptions when she really doesn't know, and she's kind of ignorant on the topic, while Starr Starr was right there. And so she is just infuriated at Haley for making such quick judgments. And when everything with Khalil happens, she is finally able to just accept who she is. And she's not afraid anymore to show that she is Black. And she's not afraid to side with her family and her community instead of putting on this face so she can be accepted at school.
I love the book, you know, and I love the story behind the book. And just as a voice and as someone who has a platform, I've just been racking my brain trying to figure out the best way to use that platform to address what I've been seeing in the news, what I've been seeing in the media, the treatment of people of color, Black people specifically. And so to be able to take on this role and to be able to speak out in a way and articulate my frustrations in a way through this powerful character just felt like an honor. And it's influenced me in ways that I didn't expect. She's one of those people that just wants justice. She witnesses injustices all the time. She's kind of tired, but one of those people that you look to for inspiration, to feel like, you know, you can make a difference. And I think for her, this case means a lot because of Starr. Because of Starr, there's a unique situation where you have a witness to this murder, and she sees a lot of herself in Starr. I think she comes to see a lot of herself in Starr. And in the end, I think learns a bit more from Starr than Starr may have learned from her. And, you know, she's just so fun to play because she's so outspoken. Khalil's death is, I don't want to say an opportunity, but, you know, it is an opportunity to try again, to try to shine a light again, and to get justice for his family, and to bring attention to this national issue. I've been watching her work for a very long time. She was like an earlier viewer of my small web series, Awkward Black Girl, and I remember being excited then, like, oh, what? Amandla watches this? This is dope. And then to be able to work with her and just, like, one of those people that comes to set and encourages you, because you know she's been there every day for over 12 hours. And, you know, in watching her, just feeling like inspired to continue to try to be better. And she's just a complete joy to work with. So this is my first time working on a movie, and meeting with George, like that first meeting, I just remember leaving so impressed with him because he really takes the time to dive into every character, no matter how small, and just invest so much time in making sure that this is a fully realized world. And it's just so great about communicating what it is that he wants, because that's hard as a director. You know, sometimes you work with directors who have a specific vision but aren't necessarily able to articulate that through the actors. And I just feel like he's, you know, a director's director, an actor's director, and also just has been a pleasure to work with. And I've learned so much from him just behind the scenes. There definitely were, like, always be polite, always, you know, show your hands. I remember my brothers getting those talks, my older brothers, and I don't think that I grew up with a favorable opinion of the police. In fact, I wanted to be a police officer when I was a little girl. Just, you know, I wanted to be a dinosaur too. But, you know, I remember saying that I wanted to be a police officer, and my grandmother being like, no, you don't want to be that. And my mom had to talk to my grandmother and be like, you can't discourage, like, she wants to be a dinosaur. But, you know, that fear just being instilled in me at such a young age, and never revisiting that. So there were definitely police talks, and with reason. I really hope people don't just dismiss this as a film about police brutality, because it's so much more than that. You know, I think it's a testament to Angie's writing that this resonates across all ages. It's really a coming of age story, if anything. It's about a young, Black woman kind of finding her voice. And what I love about this project specifically is that there's so many Black women, young Black women, on the sidelines, in the trenches, behind so many of our movements throughout history. And so to see the evolution of this young girl and sort of her origin story, and to imagine where she's gonna go from here is just so inspiring. So I just hope audiences leave here feeling like they can make a difference, they can use their voices to speak out.
She's fantastic, she really is. And we wanted to stay true to her voice. It was so important for us, and it was so collaborative with her that we kept giving her the pages of the script. What do you think? What would this character say? What happens if we cut out this? She's fantastic, and what that girl had to endure during the shoot was unbelievable. The range of emotions and working every day. She had no time off. I think in the 39-day shoot, she had 1 day off. Other than that, she was there every day. And as we all know, it wasn't an easy shoot. George and I have been working together for like 29, 30 years together. So it's just like secondhand for us. I was just happy he got a chance to do this. Like I kind of felt like this was a shot in a sense of the script just came together the right way. The cast was fantastic. And, a lot of times you go into these things where you're still tweaking the script, but for him and I, it was like, let's get this perfect. So once we come to Atlanta, we focus on shooting, focus on the film. We're not working on a script. And it just came together in a great way. And George has a lot of great traits, but one of his strongest traits is working with, younger people. For me, it's about finding your identity. Starr is a character who's straddling two worlds. And she searches for her identity. And once she finds her identity, she finds her voice. And once she finds her voice, I think she could find kind of like a healing process. There's a lot of racial discord in this country right now. And I feel like a film like this it's not going to solve the problem, but maybe it could help people look at it in a different light. And I think it's important for people to find their voice. And for our character Starr, that's what she does. And right when she finds that voice, it's when the true meaning comes out, and it affects the people around her, and it affects everybody. So for me, it's really about finding your identity, finding out who you are. It's such an interesting family, where they're interlinked through other families and other people. And the interesting thing about Mav, the character, is he comes from a checkered past, but he's really trying to do what's right. And you could tell, like, what's the word I'm looking for? He's kind of, Mav is reconciled with his past. He's not afraid to talk about it, but he's definitely a changed person. And he's going to do whatever he can for his family. And he felt that time when he was away that he's making up for it. But he has such a strong presence as a father.
I attended a mostly white upper-class private school in Jackson, Mississippi, and I was a lot like Starr. I was the only black girl in most of my classes, and I lived in the hood, so I had to often be two different people in two different worlds. And it was while I was in school that a young man named Oscar Grant lost his life in Oakland, California. And although that was hundreds of miles away, it led to conversations at my school and in my neighborhood. And my neighborhood, Oscar was one of us, but at my school, well, maybe he deserved it. He was an ex-con. Why are people so upset? And I was angry and I was frustrated. And in my anger and frustration, I decided to write a story about a boy named Khalil and a girl named Starr, and their journey in dealing with the situation, much like Oscar's. I've always said, and I try to remind my readers of this, that books and movies are fraternal twins. They're not going to be identical. They're not going to look exactly the same, but they're going to share a lot of similarities. And what got me, though, from the very beginning was that everyone was dedicated to making sure that the heart of the book remained in the movie, and they've done that. George has been incredible in that sense. He wants to keep it as true to the book as possible. You know, it's a 400 and something page book. That's hard to get into a movie, but it's so spot on. I couldn't be happier with it. And it's knowing, though, that they are so dedicated to it, not just even George, but like Amandla carries a copy of the book around, you know? And the cast and the crew, everyone has read it. And you get that sense that, yeah, we want this to be as true to the source material as possible. George was actually one of the first people I ever spoke to on the phone about the project becoming a movie. And his phone conversation stood out like immediately. I remember my literary agent was on the phone as well, and afterwards he called me and he was like, that guy's it. He gets it. And he gets the themes of it. He gets the feelings of it. He gets what's not on the page. And as an author and an artist even, to have that and to see that and to have someone who connects with it in that way is incredible. So from the beginning, I'm a huge fan of his work, first of all. I haven't told him this, so this is like my first time admitting this out loud, but like his movie Soul Food was like one of the things that pushed me into writing, because he has an ensemble cast in that movie, and it was like, it did something for me, it clicked for me, and I was like, I can write a lot of characters too, maybe, and maybe I can do ensemble cast. So if you look at The Hate You Give, it's a big cast. So he's been like a big inspiration of mine from the time I was a little kid watching Soul Food and watching Barbershop. So it just felt right, and I'm honored to have him on this. For me as a writer, music definitely fuels me as I write. I used to want to be a rapper, but then I realized you can only say so much in 16 bars in a song. So that's why I turned to books. But for me, in a lot of ways, you know, hip-hop is poetry. Hip-hop is art. And it fuels me and it fuels how I write. I often say I want to write the way that rappers rap. I want to be unfiltered. I want to be raw. I want to go there. And that's exactly what we're even doing with this movie. It's unfiltered. It's going there. It's touching on these topics the same way a rapper would. So I think in a lot of ways, it's reflective of the culture. It's reflective of the art form of hip-hop in that sense. We have this young girl who's going through something so traumatic, but we're not holding back on it. We're going to show you the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, and that's what hip-hop does. So to me, it's a marriage. They go hand in hand. The Hate You Give is about 16-year-old Starr who lives in these two different worlds, the mostly black poor neighborhood where she lives and the mostly white upper-class private school that she attends. And the struggle of being two different people in two different worlds becomes even harder when she witnesses her childhood best friend Khalil get killed by a cop. Khalil was unarmed. And what Starr does or does not say could not only change her community, but it could end her life. And while it's about police brutality and it's about those things, it's also about love and it's about family and having a strong foundation and what that means. He has the talk, as we call it in the black community with Starr and Seven, about how to behave if they are ever pulled over by a police officer, if they're ever confronted by a police officer. I got the talk myself around that same age, and it was actually by a family member who was a cop. So this is a conversation that a lot of black parents have, how to behave in front of a cop, where to put your hands, what to say, what to do. And the unfortunate thing is, it feels as if sometimes the talk is no longer even relevant or can be applied, because so many of these cases, we see it happen over and over again. People sometimes do what they're exactly supposed to do, and they still end up dead. But it's a talk still that's still being held, because I think for a lot of us, we feel like we have to do it either way. And we know that outcome could be bad, but we still have to prepare our children. And that's exactly what Maverick wants to do. He wants to prepare Starr, Seven, and later Sekani for what could happen and what they could see and what they need to do so that they can hopefully get home safe. Maverick, to me, represents redemption. With Maverick, we see a guy who was once a drug dealer, who was has been in prison, who was once a gang member, and he's turned his life around. And you see the scars of his past, you see his tattoos and all of this, but he's this soft, gentle guy now his main priority is providing for his family and providing them safety. And the fact that he gives Starr and Seven that talk at such an early age, That's part of him being that protective father. He's seen things, he's experienced things. He knows that the world is not always going to be safe for them, or that is not always going to be welcoming to them, or that it won't always accept them, and he wants to prepare them early. And it's a talk that a lot of parents have to have, unfortunately, Black parents have to have at young ages now with their children. So he gives it to them early because he's always the kind of dad that says, I want to give it to you straight. Maverick doesn't want to lie to his kids. He wants them to be prepared for the real world because he's had to be prepared for the real world. She and Khalil are pulled over, and Khalil and the cop kind of get into a little back and forth conversation. And unfortunately, it ends with Khalil being killed by the cop, and he was unarmed. But the officer assumed that he had a weapon, and Starr is the only witness. And it's the most traumatic thing that's happened to her. She sees it happen, and she has to, from that point on, figure out, what do I say? How do I speak up about this? She's often said she's seen cases like this. We've all seen cases like this where people become hashtags, but it's another thing when you see it happen right in front of you. So for her, this is the defining moment of her life. This young lady is incredible. Her activism and the way she speaks out and uses her art form and uses her platform to speak up and speak out for the oppressed is incredible. And she only just turned 19. And I look at her, I'm like, what was I doing with my life at 19? You were amazing. But it felt right. It felt perfect. And now seeing her after almost 2 years now, knowing she was attached to this project, seeing her actually become Starr and study the book and study Starr's mannerisms and all of this and ask me questions and stuff and really get into the character, and then seeing her on camera become Starr has been probably one of the most incredible things in my life. We couldn't have had anyone better to play this character. She's bringing it, and she's brought me to tears several times, but I'm eternally grateful to have her on this project. She is amazing. It's about love in a lot of ways. So while the title says the hate you give, I still think there's a lot of love involved.
That's some love you give.
Yeah, the love you give. We call it thug love.
Yeah. The hate you give is about finding your own voice, is about speaking up, being heard, not being afraid to, if standing outside of the pack is what it takes and being alone and saying what you have to say, if that's what it takes, not being afraid to do that. Also realizing that it's not so much about politics anymore, it's about people. It's about how we deal with each other. Fighting injustice as always, whether it's in whatever type of situation it's in. We have also familiar things as dealing with the Black neighborhood and all that, but it's not just about that. It's about a human problem, humanity, universal problem. So I feel like that's the important thing to get across. This is not just specifically targeting one group of people to go see it. This is everyone to go see it because it's a universal message. I play Khalil Harris. Khalil is just a charming teenager. He's dealing with a lot of problems that are just handed to him, just the cards that he was dealt through life growing up in a certain neighborhood, a lower income neighborhood, which a lot of Black teens do grow up in. The hate you give, the meaning of that, which was created by Tupac, Thug Life, means the hate you give little infants F's everyone. And I feel like that means, like Khalil broke down in the movie, what society feeds us as while we're kids, whatever that is, whether it's music, whether it's things that we see in our community, whether we see the older guys doing it so we think it's cool, whatever that is passed on to us, that's what we grow up and that's what we become. And a lot of times society look at certain groups of people and they say, why are they like this, or why do they act like that, or why can't they just be that? Well, since they were kids, this is what they've been given. This is the only thing that they've been introduced to. So you can't be mad at someone for just going off of pure familiarity. They have a great relationship, even though, you know how you can have a friend and you may not talk to them for a long time, but when you see them, there's no love lost? That's how Starr and Khalil is. Whenever they rekindled, there was no love lost at all. It was just like, I miss you, you know? It was cool. What I admire about George Tillman is the time that he puts into detail. A lot of directors don't put a certain amount of hours that he puts into just fine-tuning every little detail and making sure every part sticks. What Amandla brought to this film, she brought just herself, authenticity. She brought who she really is. She tapped into any girl her age or any girl Starr's age in this culture. She really tapped into the mindset of them. I've seen her work her hardest to understand how these girls think. This film is just a reminder of no matter what age you are, no matter who you are, find your purpose, find what you're here for. Whatever you're here for, speak up and be heard. When audiences see this film, I hope it evokes thought. I hope it sits inside of the person. I'm not saying I want you to cry. Everyone will have their different reaction, but feel what's going on. Look at the bigger picture. See that if a 16-year-old girl can step out of her comfort zone and speak on something that she knows is important, that she knows is injustice, that she knows a lot of people get off with every day. If she can do that, you can step out of your comfort zone in whatever situation that you're in, whether it's with your parents, whether it's with your boss, your job, or whatever that is, and speak up about certain things that you see. If you see something that isn't right, speak up about it.
My mom has a friend named Paula Yu who is a young adult fiction author, and she had heard a lot of buzz about this one manuscript that people were losing their minds about because of its cultural relevance, because of the characters, the story, because of the heart of it and everything. And so my mom actually got her hands on an unpublished version of the book. And when I read it, I lost my mind. I was like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this before. The way that this black girl is characterized with so much heart and depth and nuance. Her experiences are really tragic, but they're so relevant. She has the experience of code switching, which is something that I feel like all black people have to do nowadays, and it's really cool to see it being addressed, I feel like, for the first time in media. Because she goes to this white private school filled with very privileged kids who don't spend a lot of time around people of color, but she's grown up in the hood with her black family. And so she's constantly navigating, having to almost split herself into two parts in order to fit into both worlds. And that was something I really related to, just because I grew up in a lower income black community and I went to a white private school. I think we're really champions for each other at this point. It's like, it feels really, really special because I look up to her so much, and she's been so supportive of me this entire time and has given me so much affirmation and so much love. The Hate You Give is about a girl named Starr Carter, but it's also about her family and her community and what it's like to traverse the world as a contemporary black American. It opens up on Starr and you get to know her and her different worlds that she lives in, her lower income black community and her white private school, and the code switching that she has to do in order to fit into those environments. But that's all challenged when this really tragic event happens. She goes to a party with her friend that she's been friends with since childhood, and when he's driving her home, they get pulled over for a traffic stop, and a white cop makes the assumption that her brush is a gun, and he shoots and kills her friend. And it challenges her whole life, it challenges her whole perspective, it challenges her identity, as she has to figure out if she has the strength to speak up for him and what she believes in. She is brave. I think she's funny. I think she's fresh. She has really cool style. She's into really cool things, and more than anything, she cares. Her heart is really big, and she contemplates with a lot of depth how she feels about things. And it might take her time to reach a place of strength and a place where she feels comfortable to use her voice, but it's because she thinks really deeply about her actions, and her number one priorities are her family and her friends and her community. I just love how as she gets more comfortable in herself, you start to see her quirks and her mannerisms and everything become more apparent because she doesn't feel like she needs to hide them anymore. And I think she's really strong. The Carter family has a lot of different dynamics going on and challenges that they face. But what remains through all of that is the deepest sense of love, of friendship, of strength found in each other, of joy. And I think it's so important that we get to see that on screen. I think Starr is a lot like her dad. I think she is inspired by him in so many different ways, whether it's her political ideologies, which she's inherited from him. She grew up being made to recite the Black Panther 10 Points program and being taught about Malcolm X and Huey Newton and Martin Luther King. And so she has grown up with this stable pillar of understanding who she is in the historical context of America and being Black and what she believes in. And when she has nowhere else to go, that's what she resorts to, and that's what she has supporting her as a backing. And so I think you see Starr throughout the film and throughout the book become more like her dad. They have a classic father-daughter relationship where he's really protective over her. She's his baby girl, and so he's willing to do anything to protect her. Russell Hornsby plays Mav, and I think we had a really similar dynamic to Starr and Mav. He had great expectations for me, but was always willing to lend his support and his strength through his belief in me. I've been a long-term fan, and so it was amazing to have her on set. I mean, she's hilarious. She has a huge heart. She was so excited to be there and did a really fantastic job in the role. It was dope. It was like a dream come true. Carlos is a really nuanced character. I think it was really important for Angie to put a character like him into the book because she wanted to explore the nuance of police brutality. She didn't want the book to dramatize our political events in any way that felt like it was pointing fingers or putting it in terms of right and wrong, because that's not how the world works. There's a million different factors at play, a million different biases and assumptions and prejudices and structures. And so Angie wanted to make sure that she had a nuanced experience represented in Carlos, who is a Black cop. Carlos is played by Common, who is an angel. I feel like anything you would assume Common to be, like positive aspects of him, he is. Like I can confirm, he's so sweet. He showed up to set with pressed juice for everyone. Thug Life stands for the hate you give little infants, F's everybody. And that's what it stood for. Pac had it tattooed on his body. What it basically means is the bias, the prejudice, the hate, the racism that you throw towards babies screws everyone over. So when you put a child in an institution that is against them, it affects everyone in a really gruesome way. This film was directed by George Tillman. George is like an uncle to me at this point. I feel so proud to just have witnessed his entire process from beginning to end and see how much he dedicated his whole mind, heart, soul, body to the project. he did so much hard work in terms of formulating different systems to explore the film in, and whether that comes to characterization or plot or tone or theme or shots, whatever it was, he did so much work from the jump in assuring that it was all how he intended it to be, and that most importantly it maintained the authenticity and the soul of the book. And he did it even when he was tired. Even when he was tired, he had a smile on his face. Even when he was worn down, he was still giving me a pat on the back and giving me a hug and assuring me. He had so much love in his heart the whole time, and I think that's what translates the most in the movie, is you get the sense that whoever made this put their whole soul into it, and I feel like you can really feel that. And I think he did some really visionary stuff too, and some really inventive stuff, and he had an open mind and was always receptive to other people's ideas, and never had any ego take place of where there could potentially be a creative possibility.
When I first read it, I was really intrigued by the idea of this young lady finding her voice. I think in 2018, not only young girls, but young boys need to realize that their voice matters. I think it's great. I saw the movie and I was emotionally moved. I think as a generation, it's time that we stand up and start taking responsibilities for our communities and take them back. We're at a point now as a country, not even a country, a world, where the divide is growing larger. And you know, when I read the script, I realized I was a part of it as well. I was the enemy as well. Anybody can throw money at a problem. Anybody can donate to a charity. But the only thing that's more important than your money is your time. And kids in the neighborhood and kids struggling, they need to see your face. They need to feel your hand. They need to know that you're an actual person and you came from this and look what you grew up to be. The thing is that I love about King and the way he's written in the book and the way he's portrayed in the script for the movie is he doesn't believe what he's doing is wrong. You know, if you're in a community with no jobs, with no opportunities, you're gonna create jobs. We are a people of survival. You know, if I'm living here and it's better over there, I'm gonna go over there. You know, so I love the fact that he feels like what he's doing isn't wrong. He's providing a service. Mav is played by the great, the immaculate Russell Hornsby. And I've known Russell for almost 20 years now, and because we started together in New York. And it's just, you know, he's one of those people where every time you hear Russell's in a project, you know it's going to be a quality project. Starr in the movie is a young girl who lives in a not so good neighborhood, and her parents send her to what they consider to be this private, affluent, well-to-do school, but she has to walk that line between her reality and her opportunity. And you know, putting a kid in that position can be very turbulent, because they have to figure out who they are in a world where they don't fit into either. I hope it invokes a response. I hope it invokes a conversation. I hope, you know, kids in high school should watch this movie just like police should watch this movie and realize all police ain't bad, just like all kids in the hood ain't bad. You know, and once that conversation happens, I think it would be a fair and neutral playground for those two groups to meet.
It had a lot of heart to it. It made me think about our lives and just human beings and like what we can go through and like things that we the walls we put up towards each other, and it made me think about breaking down some of those walls and just some of the pain that, you know, that a lot of people have to experience, and it made me feel closer to humanity in a way when I watched it, and also, you know, I felt touched by it. It had a lot of heart. George Tillman, our director, really prepared us to be able to be as true as possible to who these people we are expressing in film. Like he gave us sessions where we just got to discuss who these characters are in our relationships, and also just like relate to one another as the characters, which was really powerful for me as an actor, that experience. And I think, you know, from each actor who was a part of it, I think we all could appreciate like really thinking about the dynamics, and I really believe that everyone who participated valued the work, valued what this movie is, what the book is, what this means to society. So we all came in like, we got to bring our heart, soul, and our A+ game, and I think George was the visionary who made sure that it all aligned so that vision for each actor could really become one whole story and picture, and we all on the same vibe, really. Code switching is something that many of us do, but I think the most important thing is whatever the code is, you gotta be true to who you are, true to what you believe in, have some morals when it comes to that. And I think this movie like brings those things right to your face. Like, hey, Carlos is from the Heights, the same neighborhood that Starr and the whole family is from. So to go out and eventually become a police officer, any community, especially when you're dealing with like black communities in many ways, obviously for justified reasons, a lot of times police officers are looked at as opposition.
Immediately I was just like connected right to the character, Starr. Right in that first chapter, we meet Starr, we meet her childhood friend Khalil, and we go right into the incident that happened that kicks off our story. I was immediately hooked. One, I was hooked in by the voice, how Starr talked, how the author really brought the reader into her world. And two, the theme. I think the theme just really struck out at me. It's just about standing up for yourself. So instead of that one chapter, I ended up reading about half of the book in 2 days while I was shooting the TV show. Okay, so, and I knew I had to be involved right there. It was my duty to really chase this book and just get me on the phone with Angie Thomas. I want to talk to Angie Thomas. I want to be behind this project. What makes her life interesting that she lives in an inner city neighborhood, but her family, her mom and dad, drives her out about 40 minutes out to another school, which is Williamson Private School. There is where she tackles and becomes version Starr 2. Not able to become herself. If she talks too slang, they think she's hood. She let everybody know where she's from. They'll think she's ghetto. So she has to put on a mask to become who they want her to be. But the story evolves when she witnessed the shooting of one of her childhood best friend, Khalil Harris. And all these things is questioned for her about Starr version 1 and Starr version 2. Who should I become? Who should I hide from? Who do I tell about this shooting? Who do I tell that I'm the witness? How do I react with my friends about racism and how they say certain things to me? This is about her awakening. This is about her journey and really owning up and really realizing I am the most important person in my life and I'm gonna be who I wanna be. And this is what that story becomes, about her journey of being a full person. Not only do you have to struggle to become someone else, which we describe as being code switching, which is being someone else and switching to who you become to become somebody else to make them feel comfortable. That's who Starr, she struggles in the white world with being herself and with that identity. But also in Garden Heights, there's many things that she's hiding from her Garden Heights friends. I mean, she has a white boyfriend named Chris, who's very close. They've been dating for about 6 months at Williamson. She has very rich friends in her private school. So a lot of her friends in Garden Heights thinks that she's being bougie or being uppity because she goes to a nice private school. And also she has to switch her behavior and her language and her dialogue and how she talks in Garden Heights. If she talks to Williamson in Garden Heights, people go think she's acting white. If she goes into Williamson and she talks too much slang, they'll think she's being African American. So that is something that me and Angie, we talked about, and the writers in this film, is that sometimes you have to feel who are you and what is important to you. I'm gonna be who I think I want to be, and this is what Starr realizes. Her relationship with her mom is very close, but they see things a little different throughout the movie. And when it comes to Starr becoming a witness, Lisa feels it's better to keep Starr behind closed doors, concentrate on your school, try to get the best grades. She really believes in moving out of the neighborhood is going to benefit the family, because that's what happened to her and her family when her mom took her to a Catholic school very early on. Mav is a little different. He's a very individual who really believes in the Black Panther program. He really believes in black empowerment. He believes in being in the neighborhood. He and Starr have a very great relationship. King is exactly like Mav. I mean, he's an individual who grew up in Garden Heights. He's from the Heights. At the same time, his dad was a gang member, so he grew up in the gang lifestyles just like Mav did. But unlike Mav was able to disconnect and disassociate himself from the gang. After spending time in prison, Mav realized I'm never going to be and want my son to be in prison like I was when I found out that I'm in the same prison as my dad. King was not able to really make that difference. I started to see that it was a lot of connecting things in her life that was very much connected to the book as well. I mean, she's an individual that grew up in the inner city, went to a private school, also dealt with code switching, also dealt with issues that Starr has dealt with in the film. And I just felt like she was perfect. She was Starr from the beginning. And our relationship pretty much been a partnership throughout this whole process. When I started reading about Mav, about his life as a family man, this guy who has a past. He used to be one of the king lords in this gang, went to prison, out, now is a family man, working in a grocery, a blue-collar, hard-working, and a great wife, great husband and wife relationship. It was a lot of dynamics, and I was like, Russell Hornsby, this the guy. Music plays a huge part in this film. And it kind of goes in three different components in this film. You have Starr at Williamson, and that world, and the white world private school that she goes to is going to have his own music. Why is going to have his own music? Because Starr behavior is completely different. She's become version 2. She's not herself. So her style, her behavior, her walk, and the way she do things is going to completely change the music, and it's going to be completely different than what we hear in Garden Heights. In Garden Heights, she hears a different kind of music, and she loves the different styles that's there. But that music is completely different in Williamson. So you have two different styles. At the same time, you have this music of the score that we have that's going to be composed by Dustin O'Halloran, who did a great movie, nominated for an Oscar. And I'm excited for him to be working on the film too. So you have these three areas of music and different styles, and it all really connect to where Starr is, where's her headspace at this particular time. You will be entertained and inspired. You'll walk away, stand up for yourself. You got something to say, believe in it. Don't be version 2, version 3, just be the version who you are. I think the most important thing that this film that I'm hoping that would do is just start conversations, get people to talk. There's many different subject matters that we deal in the film. Police brutality. We deal with undercover racism. We deal with black on black crime. And at the same time, we deal with just the ideal of standing up for what you believe in.
I read the script and I was instantly drawn to the story. I mean, just the story of Starr and what she goes through in the story. I mean, that was what really pulled me. And also just with the topic, I think it's really important. And I think it was, especially with me being a part of it, I felt that I had to be a part of it. I had to be a part of this story and the storytelling and this narrative. So, I'm really stoked to be a part of it. He gets shot and killed by a police officer, and essentially she has to find her voice and her activism through the injustice because, the police officer doesn't end up going to jail or all this kind of stuff. So, it's a battle for her. And also all while living in the hood and going to a private school, she also has to, deal with those kind of complexities that she has to deal with and kind of switching and turning on and off certain things and certain things of her personality. He's really protective over her. I feel like he's like a second father. I would say he's like a little Mav. He's always looking out for her best interests. It's his little sister. The talk that he gives his kids at the beginning is pretty much just how to conduct yourself in this world, especially being black, right? There's obviously some privileges and there's some things that, we can't really control. So it's really just about him educating us in how to conduct ourselves, in particular with the police, with the authorities, and just to, really just be careful and, kind of walk on eggshells, especially when, you're caught in a certain situation where, things can go south at any time. Just be smart, very smart. I think what she brings to this movie is just truth. I had a lot of time to, sit down with her and just get to know her, and her life story. And it's freakishly odd how close it is to Starr. It's very, very weird. She came from, I guess, the hood, if you would say, and she went to a private school. She obviously had to deal with certain issues that were in this script in real life, So I think throughout the process, she really just kind of pulled from real life experience and her own truth to kind of make it real to her, and when she was kind of just tapping into certain, scenes and certain moments, I can really just see that it was really affecting her, in real life, and even off camera, she was still affected by it. We'd go back to our hotel and she'd still be affected by it, and it was really beautiful to see, and how committed she is to this role and Starr, and she was telling me that, this is a dream role for her, so I'm just really happy to be a part of that. It's very rare that you see someone so committed to his craft. I could tell that he has theater background because of just his physicality. Just preparing himself for a scene. He's very, very physical, and he really gets into it in his body, and he really just lives this. And at the beginning, when I first met him, I didn't know if I was meeting Russell or if I was meeting Mad, because he was in character already. So I think that is just so incredible, and I've learned so much from him, just working off of him, and just being on the sideline, just watching him work. It's really been an amazing experience. What I really enjoyed was just how passionate about this project he is. We'd kind of, sometimes when I wasn't in the scene or I was off camera or whatever, I'll just kind of watch him as he's kind of getting into it, and he has his monitor, and he's really moving, and he feels it in his body, and I think that is so special to me, to see the passion in someone and see how dedicated he is to the story, and it's awesome. And also just how collaborative he is. He's very, very, very collaborative, and I love that, because some directors aren't very collaborative. Some of them are kind of really stuck in a certain way or direction, or they see a vision and, can't really steer too far from that vision. I really love that he's so collaborative with his actors and his talent, and it's been a joy to work with him. Having her on set was awesome because, you get to actually ask the person that created this entire world questions, even just about your character and some backstory and things like that were in the book, of course, but maybe some contextual stuff that maybe might not have been in the book, but maybe you might want to ask her. So it was awesome having her around, and also just have around there for support. This script, this book, this entire story is just so truthful. And man, I just really hope that people take what we put in, if that makes sense. You know, just when at the end of the movie, I really hope that, you know, it's really affected you, because it affected everybody that's been a part of this project, cast and crew.
Maverick, you know, represents the men of my childhood. You know, a mentor friend of mine used to say there was a time when boats were made of steel, where boats were made of wood and men were made of steel. And so I think that Maverick harkens back to that time. What I love about Mav is that he's honest. You know, he doesn't sugarcoat things. You know, I mean, he understands that his kids are young and they deserve and need to be children, but he also realizes that you have to give kids, and more specifically in kids of color, black kids, you have to give them the truth. I think Mav realizes that it's better that I be proactive as a parent and sort of bring you along slowly and just let you know that, you know, these are some of the benchmarks that you're gonna, of information that you're gonna have to have and understand and know, so that you're prepared. You know, strong fathers do exist in this country and in this world. And again, more specifically, strong black fathers do exist. I know them. And so it's not often seen on screen. And I think it is important to show, again, that we love, that we have compassion, that we honor our children, but we honor our wives, that we love them, you know, and that we're men of integrity and truth, you know, and all these, and dignity, and you know, and all these things. And so again, it's who we are. So I think what the movie does, and I think what the characters do, is it helps the audience understand, you know, who we are.
My first reaction was screaming, and I told my mom she was lying because I didn't believe it. And then, like, being part of this project is a true blessing. It's fun, and I love all the people I'm working with. I think this is a strong topic that should be expressed, and people need to start thinking about it a little bit more. Starr is Amandla Stenberg, and she is just awesome, and she's a great actress, and like my real sister, every time like I don't have to shoot for the week, I'm like, oh, I wonder what they're doing, and like it's just like kind of hard to be without them because they're like family. George Tillman Jr., and he's an awesome person overall. He just always just makes us happy, and he brightens up the film, and he helps us like make this seem real. And that's like a great thing because these scenes are becoming more real because of him, mainly. I really like the emotional parts because sometimes it makes me emotional, but that's good because I'm understanding the point of the movie, so those are the parts I'm excited for.